Here's every starter Pokemon that broke the standard or rules of what it meant to be a starter Pokemon. Starting with Gen 1, it's funny to think that we typically see base form starters as mono-type Pokemon, because our first ever starter Pokemon, Bulbasaur, is our first and one of our only dual type starters. As a grass and poison type Pokemon, no other starters carries the poison type aside from it and its whole family. And funny enough, it's the only dual type starter family to have the same dual type for all 3 family members. While Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle all evolved to their middle stage evolutions at level 16, Charmeleon and Wartortle evolved to Charizard and Blastoise at level 36, while Ivysaur has the privilege of evolving to Venusaur at level 32, this being the first time a starter Pokemon evolves at a different level compared to the rest of the trio. Venusaur is also technically the first starter Pokemon here with a gender difference, so already with the Bulbasaur family alone, starters actually don't have too much uniformity, meaning that when we do hit some level of uniformity with later generations, that's surprisingly going to be the time where we're breaking a certain standard. The Charmander family is the first starter family to show that you can receive a typing upon evolution, as Charizard gains the flying typing, and is the only Kanto starter to actually gain a typing in this regard, even upon Mega Evolution with Mega Charizard X, so technically it's the first starter to show that its typing can change as well, as Mega Charizard X changed its flying type for the Dragon type. And with the Bulbasaur and Charmander families all having dual types by the end, the Squirtle family breaks this by having Blastoise as the first fully ever monotype starter family, and first final stage starter evolution that remains monotype. Kinda crazy if you think about it. The Kanto starters also establish a certain norm of fire starters having the highest base stat total, with the water starters coming in second and the grass type starters coming in last. Of course, we can't forget the pandering that the Kanto starters receive, as they're the only starter trio to receive exclusive forms for multiple gimmicks, being the only starters that can both Mega Evolve or have Gigantamax forms, with Charizard being the only starter to have 2 unique Mega Evolutions. Now, some of you may be saying that they're also the first starter Pokemon that come as a trio that you can receive in another region outside of Kanto, referring to how they can be obtained by Professor Sycamore in X and Y. And sure, maybe they're the most gifted starter trio ever, as they're gifted to you in X and Y, Legends ZA, the Johto remix, Hoenn remix, and almost every Kanto game. But the first set of starters to be gifted or given to the player outside their native region are actually the Johto starters. The plainest starters at their debut, the Johto starters are actually gifted to you in Hoenn by Professor Birch in Pokemon Emerald upon completing the Hoenn deck, so that's pretty cool. It was definitely incredibly crazy at the time. The Johto starters were also the first trio to actually have all monotype starters across the whole family and final evolutions, and most notably, the first fully evolved monotype fire starter, as well as the first fully evolved monotype grass starter, and I guess the first ever monotype base and second stage grass type starter Pokemon, which is kinda crazy. So yeah, for Chikorita and Cyndaquil, they're the first fire and grass type starters to have full monotype families. It's pretty insane how many records Chikorita, Cyndaquil, and Totodile have for being so basic, but what isn't basic is their levels of evolution. Johto decided to go for different evolution levels for each Pokemon, 16 and 32 for Bayleaf and Meganium, 14 and 36 for Kulava and Typhlosion, and 18 and 30 for Croconaw and for Alligator. Level 14 being the earliest level for any starter to evolve into their middle stage, and 18 being the latest, and level 30 being the earliest any starter reaches their final form, with 12 levels being the shortest gap between any middle and final stage starter Pokemon. It was a unique take for sure. These 3 are also the only starters that have all been recycled as starters for other games, Cyndaquil for Legends Arceus and Chikorita and Totodile for Legends ZA. And because of this, they're the only starter trio to have alternate forms that all have new typings, with the Fairy, Ghost, and Dragon types respectively. Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip, believe it or not, are the first set of starters to have a uniform level of evolution. All 3 of them evolve into their middle stages at level 16 and then their final stages at level 36. With Combustion and Marshtomp, it marks the first time that the middle stage fire and water starters have dual typings. And with Swampert, it marks the first time the final water starter has ended with a dual typing, and it's the first time a water type starter has ever had a dual typing in general. Swampert also breaks the rule of the fire type starter being the strongest Pokemon in terms of stats, because it has the highest stat total of not just the Hoenn starter trio, but the highest stats of every single starter Pokemon without any form change, and even with form change, it's the highest. Sceptile and Blaziken also remain at a stat total of 530, making this the first time any starter Pokemon had an equal base stat total to another, within their respective trio of course. The entire Torchic family also has gender differences, which is the first and only time a starter Pokemon family has had gender differences like this. Just so you know, starter Pokemon didn't really receive gender differences after this, meaning that this family, Venusaur and Meganium, are the only starter Pokemon with gender differences. Combusken and Blaziken also have the privilege of being the first ever fighting and fire type Pokemon, which of course we got many of them moving forward in the future. And while Swampert wasn't the first water and ground type Pokemon, Mega Sceptile was the first grass and dragon type Pokemon, which is pretty cool considering how many of them we got in the past 3 generations. This is also the only trio to have their starter Pokemon have Mega Evolutions come out at different times, with Blaziken's Mega coming out one whole set of games earlier than Swampert and Sceptile, which is notable considering that we now have 4 trios of Mega Evolving starters. And I almost forgot to mention that with Leaf Blade, Blaziken, and Muddy Water, this was the first time that starter Pokemon ever received unique signature moves to their evolutionary family, because in Gen 3, these moves were exclusive to the starter families and no other Pokemon. We also never get to see the rival evolve their starter into the final evolution in the base games, so that Wally could present himself as the main rival, which is a bummer, but for the sake of our video, that is something important to note. At least it was fixed in the remakes. But before we move on to the Sinnoh starters, let's take a break with the sponsor of today's video, Tokyo Treats. This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. This month, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co take you to Akiba and Okinawa. Tokyo Treat is a fun and exclusive Japanese snack subscription box filled with limited edition Kit Kats, specialty flavored Japanese chips, seasonal treats, and occasional Japanese sodas that are only available in Japan for a limited time. Sakura Co is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that supports local Japanese snack makers, and each box comes with 20 traditional, authentic, and Japanese snacks, including Japanese teas and special Japanese tableware. This month's Tokyo Treat theme is Akiba Snack Quest, and with Tokyo Treats, we always show off the monthly Kit Kat on this channel. And this month, it's the Cookies and Cream Kit Kats. They sent me this one last year, and my god, is it as great as ever. One of the other snacks that I really enjoyed was the Crunky Chocolate Balls, sweet and salty with caramel. With Sakura Co, the theme of this box is flavors of Okinawa. The Okinawa Mango Pie was my favorite item from the roster, and all of this month's snacks pair perfectly well with this month's tea, the Sandpin Tea, which I did happily drink while using this month's table item, the Okinawa Kozara Plate, which I did both love the design and the colors. Both boxes also come with booklets with allergen and dietary information, as well as cultural facts. If you want to celebrate Japan, then you'll definitely get a box. Be sure to get your own box or get it as a gift for your loved ones so that they can experience Japan from the comfort of their own home. Use code HybridHero to receive $5 off your first Sakura Co box through my link, or your first Tokyo Treat box through my other link. Now, back to the video. Gen 4 is the first time all 3 starters had dual typings upon their final evolution, which, man, wasn't a breath of fresh air. It also gave 2 completely unique typings to Empoleon and Torterra in the form of Water, Steel, and Grass Ground, which are still to this day unique typings. It's also the first time where each of their dual typings really changed the way they function or play into the other starters, as their dual types all mix up how the basic fire, water, grass, rock, paper, scissors game plays here. While a case can be made that the previous generations have certain themes, such as the Kanto stars all being reptiles, I think the Sinnoh stars are the first confirmed case of this, where Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup's whole families were directly made and inspired from real-world myths. Like Gen 4, Gen 5 doesn't have too many big changes. Snivy, Tepig, and Oshawott all evolve at level 17, a unique level for starter Pokemon evolution. Then they all evolve at level 36 as per normal. This is also the first time where all 3 starters have had a unique and equal base stat total of 528 in their final forms. Finally, some equality! Just like how we can make things equal between us once you hit that subscribe button. It's free, and you get my content for free. Fair deal, am I right? The Unova starters are also the first time we see every starter being used in the game or taken up by important characters, as we have 2 different rivals in this game. A nice change for sure. Technically, the Gen 4 protagonist and rival all take the Sinnoh starters as well, but you never see one of them fully evolve. Anyways, they're also in a unique predicament where they have 2 starters who receive new forms, with Samurott receiving a regional variant and Emboar having a Mega, but Superior having nothing as of now. The only time where something like this has happened thus far. Now, before we address the massive elephant in the room with Gen 6, or should I say the massive frog in the room, let's go over some smaller rules that broke here first. You may or may not remember, but Gen 6 starters were the first ones to break the rule of the base starter Pokemon only having 2 moves to start off with, as Froakie, Chespin, and Fennekin all had one additional move in their starting move pool that was a move associated with their primary typing, and since then this has been a constant. If you consider Cyndaquil bipedal, which I understand if you don't, then this is also the first starter trio to have 2 quadruped Pokemon as base starters, with only one of them being bipedal. Usually it's been the reverse. You can also receive 2 of the 3 starters here in X and Y without trading, which is a first, as Shauna gives you an egg of the starter weaker to yours. I really wish they did more of this, but oh well. Greninja is the only starter Pokemon to have 3 abilities before any form change. This of course is because of Ash Greninja, which is a form change, but you use regular Greninja with Balabon to get that form. And anyways, in Scarlet and Violet, the ability is still there, but without any form, so yeah, Greninja just got blessed. And even without that, it received a unique form before its other trio members. 3 generations before they got anything. So yeah, Greninja got more than just special treatment. It left its other trio members in the dust and broke all rules of moving as a trio rather than an individual Pokemon. But they did make a perfect type circle with Greninja, Chestnut, and Delphox, where their secondary typings have a rock, paper, scissors dynamic going on with the other starters. The first of its kind, so that was cool. Surprisingly, Gen 7 gives a lot to each one of their trio members. So besides Incineroar being a VGC demon, they were pretty fair with this trio, which they needed. All three of the fully evolved starters, Decidueye, Incineroar, and Primarina, had their own unique Z move, which what's not equal or fair is that if you show Primarina's Z move on YouTube, it's an immediate copyright claim, even to this day, so yeah, we can't show that one, but trust me, it exists. These three are also the first three starters to all have some kind of type immunity in their final forms. Primarina's Fire type is immune to Dragon, Incineroar's Dark is immune to Psychic, and Decidueye's Ghost is immune to both Normal and Fighting. Speaking of the types, Rowlet being a Grass and Flying type is the starter with the most amount of types in its family, and the only one to change its secondary type upon evolution as it drops its Flying type for either the Ghost or Fighting type depending on whether it evolves in the regular or Hisuian Decidueye. This makes it the only time now past Greninja where a Pokemon of a starter trio has a form and the other two members don't, but if this was before Legend ZA, Greninja would have been here too. Incineroar is the only starter Pokemon I think that has lower stats than its previous evolution, as Torracat is actually faster than Incineroar, which makes sense to some degree. And this whole trio of Rowlet, Lit, and Palpio, they evolve at level 17, and then the unique starter level of 34, a first for starter Pokemon. And also, this is where they started the trend of your main rival having a weaker starter Pokemon for whatever reason. Oh well. Jumping over to Gen 8, there's not too much, but funny enough, with the Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble families, this is now the true monotype starter trio, at least for now. As with the Gen 2 starters, all receiving new forms, they have some form of other typings, but Rillaboom, Cinderace, and Inteleon don't have anything. Even with their Gigantamax forms, they're still pure monotype. So yeah, if you're looking for purists, here they are. I can't even say that they're the first starter trio to have Gigantamax forms, because technically, the Kanto stars were all revealed to have Gigantamax forms before them, so yeah. But what is unique to them is that their middle stages all evolve to the final stages at level 35, so that's pretty neat. Before we move on to Gen 9, we can't forget to talk about the starters from Legends Arceus. The first starter trio made of recycled starters from 3 different regions and generations. Rowlet, Cyndaquil, and Oshawott are also the first and currently only starter Pokemon to have regional variants as well, which also marks the first time that you can catch each one of the starters in a single game without actually trading. This is also a unique time where the game dropped these starters' old evolution levels to give them all the same evolution levels of 17 and 36, so technically Rowlet and Cyndaquil just adapted to Oshawott here. Hisuian Decidueye was Grass Fighting, Hisuian Typhlosion was Fire Ghost, and Hisuian Samurott was Water and Dark. This is important to note because the only real standard that's been broken with Gen 9 here is that the Paldean trio with Meowscarada, Skeleton, and Quaquaval are the only starter trio to have the exact same dual typings as a previous trio member. Don't get me wrong, Dark and Fighting had been used a lot, but the combination of Dark, Fighting, and Ghost was unique to Hisui, and Paldea went ahead and used it again, keeping the Fire starters as Ghost types, and then switching the Water and Grass type secondary typings. As much as I love Sprigatito, Fuecoco, and Quaxley, this was admittedly kind of underwhelming, but hey, I guess all 3 of the final stages end off at a base stat total of 530. And finally, with Legends ZA, it's the only starter trio where we have 2 members of a previous trio and 1 starter of a different trio. I still don't like that decision, but what can we do? It's cemented eternally here now. And you know what? At least we still get to see all the starters because your rival still gets to use both starter Pokemon that you don't pick. The first time one person canonically gets 2 starters, and the one time you actually get a starter Pokemon, not from a professor, but your rival as well. If you enjoyed this video, then you'll want to see my version of this on Legendary Pokemon. Be sure to check that out. Thanks for watching, and thanks to all my members for supporting this channel. If you want to support, be sure to subscribe or even become a member today. I'll see you guys over on the next video, alright? Later!